Good afternoon. We're at the Carnegie Library on Federal Street, Pittsburgh's north side, with my cousin, Rex Burton. So you're from the north side of Pittsburgh?
I'm from Bellevue originally.
When you left Pittsburgh in 1966, were you anxious to leave? Were you?
No, I wasn't anxious to leave at all. I didn't want to leave. I was trying to stay home. I thought of all the different things I could have done, or different things that might have happened that could have kept me back in Pittsburgh, and I wouldn't have had to go into the military, but everything worked out for the best.
Tell us about your father, Rex Sr.
My father, Rex Burton, volunteered during World War II to go into the Army. He went in the Army. When you were in then, it was segregated, and they would put the prisoners, the German prisoners, in the front of the train, but the blacks had to go into the back of the train. They were considered below the prisoners, the white prisoners. That's just the way the United States Army was at that time. You couldn't go into combat if you were black. You went into combat, they took one stripe away from your rank. So he was really a corporal. He was driving a truck, and the truck driver supplying different things. But when you go into combat, they took some of your rank away from you. It was just totally sickening the way that they treated us.
You were in the Army. Was your father in the Army as well?
My father was in the Army and the Transportation Corps.
When you went into boot camp,
yes.
Where were you trained?
Fort Gordon, Georgia. I went down to Fort Gordon, Georgia. Now, that was my cousin Bobby on Sandy's side of the family, a Terry. He was a Terry. And he came in right after I did. Fort Gordon, Georgia. And that was just for our training. That's for your basic training down at Fort Gordon. We didn't get away to get a chance to do anything while we were down there.
What was it like coming from Pittsburgh going to Georgia?
Well, you have to get used to people calling you out your name every once in a while, because they just use the word, indiscriminately and stuff. And you don't let it bother you after a while. That's the way they talk. That's the way they've always talked. I don't know. It would take a long time to explain some of the things, but usually I could just walk away. I didn't have to fight. I didn't have to. But there were a few times, when I did get into a scuffle with different people about different things. It all could have been avoided. Somebody swept some dirt on the place that you had just cleaned, or threw a cigarette butt down where you were picking them up. That's all it would take. I was drafted. I started out as just working in maintenance in the trucks. I was in Vietnam. I volunteered to be officer candidate school, but really what I was trying to do was get home when my son was born. I wanted to be in the United States and home when my son was born, so I volunteered to go to OCS. They brought me back to the States just in time. I made it home a month before he was born.
When did you go in?
I went in 1966. I was drafted in 1966 as a conscientious objector. Then I was advised by an aunt who had worked for Moorhead down there. She said that I should go ahead and volunteer and get a good school out of it and get some good training. So I went to mechanical school down at Fort Belvoir. I worked on different trucks, cranes, different things. Anything that the United States Army had, I would work on it, or know how to work on it. And that turned out to be a good thing.
Father and son in the United States military. How about your siblings?
All right, I was smart enough to tell the brother next to me, when they went for him, to volunteer for the Navy. So he went into the Navy instead of coming over there and going to Vietnam. He was on a smaller ship. I can't think of the name of it. Shenandoah, I think was the name of the ship he was on. He was stationed down there for a while, Newport News, Virginia, and I was at Fort Eustis, Virginia. And so we were close to each other. We could get together and come back to Pittsburgh every once in a while. But it was very good, because my brother and I were close. He's 2 years younger than me. His name is Buddy. His real name was Miller, but he was my buddy. And I would come home, I'd be home, and he would be home. We could get off at the same time. We could come back to Pittsburgh together. And we did that several times, every time we got a chance to.
I see you have a Vietnam veteran's hat.
Yes.
And you have a Huey helicopter on your T-shirt.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about your helicopter experience.
All right, when I was in OCS, all I wanted to do was get home when my wife was having a baby. Well, I had a young black officer named Lieutenant White. Then there was a white officer named Lieutenant Brown. And they decided, because I was able to get home when my wife had the baby, they said, you're not going to be able to get home. You're going to be down here. She'll send you a letter and a picture of the baby, and that's all you're going to get. Well, that contact that we had with Monroe got me in with the Red Cross, and I had been donating blood. And they knew my name more or less just from being in the Red Cross and from her. And when the baby was born, I was given a permit to go back home to see my baby. I took off from 1 week of OCS. And when I got back down there, they told me, Rex, I don't know how you did that. I don't know how you got permission to get out of here, but we're going to get rid of you. Oh, that convinced me to stay. That's all I needed. They told me they were going to get rid of me. So I did my best to try and stay. And then I volunteered to go to flight school. So I was coming out of OCS and volunteering to go to flight school. It was really, really a strange and harrowing experience. The first time I soloed, flew by myself, I almost crashed. You couldn't have got a snake underneath the skids of my OH-23. I was coming in, then I had to have a special course. They'd sent some officers out with me. They had to fly with me and decide whether I was going to be put out or whether I was going to stay. Evidently, I could fly and hover good enough so that they let me stay. I would practice with a mop and a plunger, practice flying, and it took me another 2 or 3 hours before I was able to fly and hover. I don't know if it was the fault of my instructor, if he didn't like me or wasn't paying attention to me enough, but anyhow, after that, I was able to fly. I wasn't having any trouble, and I didn't fly crashing into the earth. I knew how to slow down, and it was really, really an experience. It was a great thing. And then, after I got my flight school done, I already had a background in working in maintenance. So then they sent me to aircraft maintenance school. So I got another school because I've had that one in there. So I was a maintenance officer. Maintenance officers with helicopters were known for having the biggest bunkers. We never come out of our bunkers. We stay in our bunkers and we're well protected. And that's where I served with the 155th Assault Helicopter Company. I was their maintenance officer for 8-9 months, and it was a really great experience. Yeah, but I was not going to let any aircraft go down for something that was wrong with the maintenance on it. Everything, we never had one go down for maintenance problems.
What year would this have been?
That would have been 1970. I went in exactly October the 13th, 1967. I was with the 595th Signal Unit, and we were in support of the Big Red One. I got out of the Big Red One by volunteering to go to OCS. So I went to 1969 when I started flying helicopters, and I flew them until I got out. And I flew them for 4 or 5 years.
Were you in Nam in 1968?
I was in Nam in 1968 when the Tet offensive hit. It was terrible. Me and Bobby Terry, the one that was with the Big Red One, that's when he got hit back in. But they were fighting all the time back in. The cousin M.M. Smith, they had zappers get into the Long Bin ammo yard. I was 7 miles away and I saw the explosion. I could see the the red inside the explosion. I thought they started using nuclear weapons. That's how bad it was. I could see the fireball. They blew up maybe 2 or 3 pads at the same time of ammo, at the ammo yard.
In April of '68, Dr. King was assassinated.
Yes.
And you have some recollection of that night.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I was coming home from Cameron Bay. We got on the plane. We were all talking and having a good time and partying. By the time we got to Japan, that's where we found out that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. We automatically separated by race. We all went over on the other side of the aircraft, and it was quiet. It was just mumbling and talking and whispering and stuff like that. And they took all our guns and all our weapons off of us, and then they told us King had been killed. When we got back, D.C. was on fire, Baltimore was on fire, all the cities that we were flying over, they were on fire.
Do you recall the assassination a couple of months later of Bobby Kennedy?
Yes, I was in OCS by then. But like I said, we weren't allowed to do anything except feel bad. That's all we could do. OCS, we got 3 minutes. You got to get up, you got to shave, shower, and do the other S word. And you got 3 minutes and get back here and be dressed and ready to run. And yeah, you just stood at attention, found bare wall, got out the way, and just accepted everything. And tried to do your best to stay out of trouble and to graduate from the OCS, Officer Candidate School.
You were a leader. You were in leadership.
Follow me was written on my thing. Follow me, follow me. Yes.
What did you get out of it?
Don't quit, never quit. Just keep on working as long as you can, and then eventually you'll make it work out. You might have to go through a lot of changes, you might have to go through a lot of things, but you can make it work. And I stopped praying at one time. I stopped praying, I stopped being religious. But then, thankfully, I went down into a little bunker one time and down into a crater, and I changed what I was doing. I wouldn't be friends with people because I didn't want to make friends, because when they got hurt or something happened to them, then you felt bad. But then I started caring. I was a young man. He was just coming over to the country. I was getting ready to go home. And I showed him everything I knew about flying that helicopter.
You went in 1966. What year did you come out?
1973. But there again, I was asked to leave. I was put out. They had enough pilots. They did not need helicopter pilots. They weren't training people for maintenance enough. There was enough of us, so they put me out.
Your father was in World War II.
Yes, he was. My father was in the transportation unit, and he was with an all-black unit, and he couldn't ride in the front of the train. He couldn't ride in the front of the train, but the white prisoners of war could ride in the front of the train. But the black people, even though they were United States Army, they had to ride in the back of the train.